Running all your tests is easy, but what about running just the 5 tests that are related to login feature, or everything in your API folder except the one that is slow? That's where PyTest real power lies. In this video, we're learning how to take control of the test runner and execute exactly what you need when you need it. So the code that I'm going to use here is in GitHub, and it is available publicly, so I'm going to give you the link. And also in the README, there is tons of information, including what I'm going to talk about. If you click on running tests, there are notes here about what we cover in this video and everything else in this series. So you can use this README as a tutorial as well as a reference. All right. So we're just going to go to the code and talk about it, but everything we talk about is here. So I'm going to open the code in VS Code. I have it ready. We will run some, but first we're going to talk about rules. So before we talk about how to run a specific test, first let's cover the rules for PyTest. Rule number 1 is all tests must start or end with the word test. Well, technically test underscore or underscore test. For example, all my tests are in this folder here, and for PyTest, when I run a command saying PyTest and the folder tests, I'm telling PyTest, hey, go find tests that are in this folder. How does PyTest find the test? Because there might be a bunch of code that's in there that is not actually a test. That is when the rules come into play. So the first rule, like I said, is if a file is meant to have some tests in it, it should have the word test in front of it, or it can be the word test at the end of it. So if it starts with test underscore, then PyTest is going to say, hey, this is a test file, so I can go ahead and run it. Or you have any random words and it ends with underscore test, then the same thing applies. So the documentation here, that's what it says. The files must start with test underscore or end with underscore test. So that's rule number 1. So, and we have a few examples here. Now, once we go inside of the file, let's open this customer API backend file. Rule number 2 is if a function is supposed to be a test, then it has to start with the word test underscore. In this case, it cannot end with test underscore or underscore test. It must start. That is the only rule. So when we look at the documentation, function names, they must start with test underscore. All right. That is rule number 2. You have to really remember that, because what happens is you write a function thinking it's a test. Then when you try to run it, the PyTest is going to say, hey, I can't find it. I can't find that test. I'm not going to run it. That's because you did not name it correctly. You have to follow rule number 2. Rule number 3 that you have to remember is if you are using classes. So you don't have to use classes for the test. Just like the examples we saw here, all these tests are not in a class. They're just a bunch of functions, right? But you do have an option of organizing them into a class. So you can put everything into a class. But rule number 3 is if you do that, then the class must start with the word test, uppercase T-E-S-T. So if I write a class, let's say I'm going to convert those so they're in a class, I'm going to say class, then I cannot just say my tests, or I cannot say my, what is this one? Customer tests. I cannot do this. If I do this and put all those inside of the class, and I try to run this, none of these tests are going to run, because rule number 3 says that the class name must start with test, like that. So now all of those will be available, and Python will be able to find them. So I mean PyTest will be able to find them, right? So those are the rules. Another one that's a tricky one, right? This one here, the class should not have an init. If you have a def init in there, if you have a function like a method like that, which is a constructor, we add it to our classes. If you have the init inside of a class, then again PyTest is not going to say I found it. It's basically going to say this is not a test function, or it's not a test class, so I'm not going to run anything, right? So first, remember those rules. Rule number 1, the file name must start with test underscore or end with underscore test. Rule number 2, the methods or the functions themselves need to start with the word test underscore. And rule number 3, if you are using a class, the class itself must start with the word test. And additional rule, I will call it rule number 4, is if you are using a class, make sure you do not have an init in there, right? So this, even when you use a class, the functions, even if the class has the right name, the functions or the methods actually need to follow the same rule of when they're not in the class, which is start with the test underscore, right? So those are the main rules that you have to remember. Then how do we write or how do we run specific tests? Now let's look at the file that we have open here, or we can just use another example. Inside of tests here, we have backend, fixture examples, front end, parameterized examples. Those are for future videos. Let's look at front end. Let's look at this login. There is only one test in here, follows all the rules. Now let's say I want to run a test with the test name. I'm just going to give it the whole test name here. So I'm just going to copy the test name. And in front of my command, I'm going to do PyTest and the folder where the file is supposed to be found. We don't necessarily have to say that in front or at the end. We can add all the options and put the folder at the end. So first of all, before we even look at that, we can run everything by saying PyTest test. We hit enter. That's going to run everything. Now in this case, those are like real tests, real semi-fake tests, because the front end ones, as you can see, they actually open a browser and validate things. So it'll take a little bit of time. There is one failing and 33 passed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this. There is one option we can use, especially in our case, because we want to learn how PyTest is finding tests and we don't actually want to run it. We're going to give it an option, collect only, -- collect only. So collect means basically finding. When PyTest is finding tests, that's called collection. So if we pass in this collect only, it is a dry run. If you're coming from other frameworks like robot framework, there is a function, a parameter you can pass that says dry run. It won't run it, it will just collect it. So we hit that, it did not run anything, but it did say I found 37 tests. So we're going to use that with all of our commands because we want to save time. We don't want to run everything. Now back to what I was going to say is how to run a specific test, specific function. So you just call get the name and you just give it -k. That's the one you got to remember, the option -k, and you hit the name and you run it. So basically it said I found 2, collected 2. So it sounds like maybe I have, this is weird, I have 2 tests with the same name or something. So I'm going to go to the search and I'm going to search. There is one here and here. So there is 2 of them. In that case, that seems like a bug. I chose a different example. But again, it found 2 of them with that name. Now, that is using the full name. Now, let's just say I want to run tests or functions or methods, test methods that has the word login in them. So I'm going to use the same command, and still -k, but I can just give it that login word in there. So I'm going to just delete everything in front of and before login, hit enter. Now it's going to find 4 tests that has the word login in it. Okay, so if you want to run a file by either the full name or the partial name, you just do -k. Same thing applies with class. In fact, we could follow this here, right? How to target. So you can give it the full test. We just saw that. That's when you just give it a folder and it runs everything in that folder. Now, if you want to do a partial match, when you give it just a word that's supposed to appear in the name, then you give it -k and the word. It doesn't have to be in quotes. You just saw that working. You could put it in quotes and you might not put it in quotes. It would work. If you want to exclude, if you want to say run everything except something, right? So you can say, you can have the word slow in the name of the test and you can ignore that, or anything that has to do with homepage, you can ignore that. All you have to do is not. In this case, if you're doing it this way, because there's a space in the middle, you're going to have to put it inside of quotes. So let's go to our example. And if we go back to the previous test, and if I want to do anything that does not say login, I'm going to say not login. So it's going to be 33 of them, and match 33 out of 37. There's a total of 37 tests, and 33 of them that do not have the word login. Remember, we saw earlier 4 of them have it, so that actually adds up. All right. So if you want to exclude, or if you want to do specific by targeting the partial name. If you want to do this or that, you can do the 2 words. Again, this is going to be a partial match. One word or another. So let's say if we want something, we can go look homepage. If it says we want something that says home or something that says login, right? We can do, let me clear this. So instead of not, I'm going to say home or login. So now we got 8 tests. So 4 of them have home, 4 of them have login, because we know 4 have login. So you can go through this list here, and this will really teach you how to use that. Then if you want to run it by name, you can just give it the full path. Let's say I want to run this homepage, right? So you don't need the K flag. I'm going to just do PyTest, and I'm just going to say test. I'm just going to give it the path to the file, front end, and test homepage. Voila, that's just going to run it. I forgot the collect only, so it's actually going to run the test or the collection only. All right, so that is when you want to do it by the full name. If you want to do it by the test, but you want to use the full name, you don't want to use the -k, you can do this. You can give it the file, like we just did. I don't know why you would do that though, because using the -k will make it so much easier. But then you do the file name, double colon, and then the test name. And I'm going to add the -- collect only so it won't run. There you go, it found one test. Now that's the same thing as if I was to do, let me clear that. If I do PyTest -k and the name of the function, at the end, I forgot the collect only again, is going to do the same thing. It's going to find that test. So it's good to know that you can do that, but the use case is very, very limited. And if you want to do all the classes, the same thing. You give it the file name, double column, and the classes. You get the gist, right? You get where we're going with this. It's repetitive after that. You run, you give it a full name and a specific class. You can give it a full name, a specific class, and a specific test. Those are just good to know that you actually have those options. But the first one, when you have the -k and you do a matching of the file name, that is probably the better option. Especially if you're going to do the full test name, it's going to give you the same thing. If you're going to do partial one, right, -k in order, then you're not going to run only this test, anything that has the word order in it. So that would be the situation when you want to do this, because you want to do specifically that test. But still, you can take the test name and you can just do PyTest -k that. All right, so additional information here, adding the -v is pretty awesome. You can just play with that. You'll just get more information, right? If I run the same run, but I add -v, that's a command line option. PyTest has a lot of command line options. We're going to talk about them in one of the upcoming videos in this series, and -v is one of them. It's just an awesome. If you do PyTest -help, you will see so many options, and it's very, very useful. Okay, so that -v is the one you need to know. You should probably use it most of the time. And -s is if you have something that you're printing. If you don't do -s, PyTest will hide it. It will just capture it. It won't show. So for example, let's say we want to run this test, right? And if I have a print statement, you can use print or logging, and I can say print going to home page and ... Let me just say that, and let's say I want to run that. I'm going to do PyTest -k that guy. Okay, so I didn't give it the folder name because it's just going to start to look for it where I am currently. Now, as you can see, going to home page, it's not printed anywhere. If I do command F and search, it's not there. Okay, now I'm going to clear this. I'm going to run the same exact command, but I'm going to add -s to it. I'm going to add -s. Hit enter, and now we should see the log there. I would recommend using print. I would recommend using logging, so you get much better formatted way. But now you can see it here. Okay, print it here is kind of a little bug in the UI, but if you print like a new line before that, maybe print like just a new line, then you will see it. It will show up in the next line. But the point is the -s flag would allow you to print stuff. There you go. Okay, so those are the two, I think, key ones that I figured you should have, so I added them here, even though there are tons more. And we're going to have a specific video specifically on generating reports, HTML reports, alert reports, and I'm creating a series of PyTest tutorials that will cover a lot of things. If you're new to my channel, please make sure you subscribe. All I do is teach QA automation and software engineering. My name is Admas Kunfu. I run supersqa.com, where I teach people and help them become automation engineers. So I do one-on-one coaching. I also have a membership, which is very affordable membership that has a lot of courses, unlimited access, community, and everything you need to become a QA automation engineer, to upgrade your career. So check out my website. Send me a message if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help, and I'll see you on the next one, and all the information is in the description.